Welcome into We Are SC. Welcome into Five Things. This is after Washington's 52-42 win against USC in the Coliseum in a, I guess, not so much back and forth, but back and tie game all the way through until Washington sort of separated at the end and they get the 10-point win. So again, five things. We're going to start right off the bat. We're going to go to our first thing, and that's going to be the player of the game. Greg, who do you have as your player of the game in this one?
Well, it's certainly not going to come from anybody on the defense. I can assure you of that.
Anybody on maybe either defense in this one?
That's probably very true. No, I'm going to pick a couple guys from SC. I think they fought hard. I thought actually the defense fought hard. They're just not good. Okay. So I'm going to go with Caleb. He's kind of like a two-edged sword here because now the next question we're going to have is the plays of the game. But as a player of the game, I mean, he did well. He was 25 of or 27 of 35 for 312 yards, 3 TDs through the air, and 1 rushing touchdown. So I think he did as much as he could do based on the circumstances. But I also want to have a shout out to Taj Washington. I thought he was tremendous. Taj, 8 receptions, 122 yards, 1 TD. He's been getting better and better. I'm sure the massive amount of NFL scouts that were in the press box tonight, he helped himself out a lot. He's been getting better and better. Someone's going to take him, and he's going to have a real shot at making a living on Sunday. So I was happy for him. So those are my players of the game.
Mark, you got players of the game in this one, or a player of the game?
You know what? That's the thing about this team. You get a lot of great individual plays throughout the game, every week. They just don't know how to put together as a team. So this week's individual players of the game.
Drum roll.
Yeah, you mentioned a couple, Greg. I'll throw Austin Jones in there. 11 rushes, 127 yards. That's a pretty good per average carry. And I'm thinking, why aren't they doing this all game long? Why are they even allowing Washington the opportunity to have as many possessions as they have? That's another story for another segment. But Austin Jones ran his ass off tonight.
All right, so skill at quarterback, skill at wide receiver, skill at running back for you guys. I'll go up front because I think it is those guys, but to be a little bit different and throw some other names in. The USC offensive line was good. I mean, this is not a dominant Washington front, and you really don't like the 3 sacks. I don't know, you kind of have to go back and see. I think on the sack that took them out of field goal range, it felt like there was enough time to do something with the ball. And so what falls on the offensive line, what falls on the quarterback, what falls on receivers. But USC ran all over Washington, 9.7 sack adjusted rushing yard average. I mean, they are, without the sacks, running the ball for 10 yards a carry. And this was, again, that same kind of look line. And this was just Mason Murphy and Jarek Kingston on that side. So it wasn't perfect up front, but as we've talked about sort of with the offense all year, it was good enough. It was absolutely good enough in this one for what you needed. And so for me, kind of a shout out there again, not perfect, but this is a number 5 Washington team coming in with a lot of confidence into the Coliseum, and USC offensively for a good portion of the game felt like really took it to Washington, and those big guys up front I thought did a good job opening some big holes in this one. Let's go to our second thing, play of the game, and a couple really stand out in this one. Greg, what do you have?
It pains me to say this. It really does. Because Caleb Williams is on another planet, okay? He did everything he could, yet he fumbled late in the second half. It caused a touchdown. That was number 1. And number 2, the one that got to me actually was a fundamental play. He was sacked in the fourth quarter when you just can't get sacked in that thing. To me, those were glaring turnabouts in the game. Now, I never thought they'll ever stop. I mean, I could ask you right now, is Washington still scoring? But the point is those were two critical errors. And no matter how great he was on offense, those two to me were just absolutely mortal shots. So that's my perspective.
Mark, what do you have your play of the game in this one?
Oh, Greg took the answer. That is the answer. USC had zero margin for error from their defense in this game. They have zero margin for error in any game, but specifically this game when you're going up against an offense that can move the ball through the air like Washington, but they were moving it however they wanted in this game. So anytime you're asking your offense to be perfect, specifically Caleb Williams, his mistakes are going to be magnified. And like Greg said, that end of the first half fumble, just brutal. And then that sack in the fourth quarter, you've taken yourself out of field goal range. You cannot let that happen at those times. I get it. The defense stepped up and made a play. They twisted, as Caleb said, that, twisted, came around the edge, got him. If you have time to allow a defensive lineman to twist and still get through, you've got time to get rid of the ball. You cannot in any way, shape, or form take a sack right there. You just can't. And I'm not trying to say he's the reason why they lost, but like Greg said, when you're counting on your offense to carry the team, those two plays stand out.
All right. So I am completely with you guys. Here's where I go the other way a little bit. I've got 3 kids. I'm gonna bring my kids into this.
That's I'm pulling the kids card right out that.
Right, here we go.
Wow,
So
I want the one time to answer the questions too, Eric.
So I go out, right? If I go out and I leave the 3 kids at home, right? There's a 9-year-old, there's a 7-year-old, and a 4-year-old. When I come back and the house is a mess, I talk to the 9-year-old because the 4-year-old, right? What do you expect from them? That's how we treat the offense and the defense this year, right? And when we do this, like you said, Mark, there's such an expectation of, well, the defense is going to do that anyway. How can you even expect them to do anything? And I'm not going to do that. I'm done with that. The 3rd and 18 touchdown allowed in this one was inexcusable from any angle you want to look at it.
Good call.
And I don't know if that's the worst one. When after that sack, right, the one we talked about, the one that Caleb can't take. I mean, you can't, right? If you're looking at being a number 1 overall pick and managing the game and all of that, the fumble and the sack can't happen in a game like this. But USC has to punt. They get Washington down at the 9-yard line, right? 9-yard line. The defense can come out, make a play. The first play is a 53-yard run that sets Washington up to go score the final, right? The one that puts it out of reach. That's it. I'm not saying, oh, the offense only scored 52 and they should have scored, or 42 and they should have scored 53. Make a play defensively. And it's not even you're asking them to stop a 3rd and 1. I mean, stop a 3rd and 18 where you have Penix scrambling, pinned on the sideline, where he can throw the ball one place and he puts it over 2 defenders and around another one, and the guy makes a catch. You have him backed up on the 9-yard line. Stop the run they've been running all day. Stop it. And you give that up. And those to me are the plays where we're not expecting perfection from the offense. That's something where the defense has to play complementary just a bit, just make a play every once in a while. And they had the interception, special teams had the block punt, but you had, for me, those 2 major chances to kind of change the way the game was going. And huge fails, just huge, no other word to use there. Huge fails in those situations. All right. So yeah, I'm yelling at the 4-year-old, right? Finally, everyone's getting yelled at. Let's go to our third thing. The expectation, Greg, you had coming into this one that was met.
High scoring game. I thought it would be high scoring. I thought it was going to be like a game like tennis. you had to hold your serve. And SC couldn't hold its serve when it absolutely had to do it. Great offense by Washington, just great offense. You couldn't, with the type of defense SC has, it was the worst possible matchup. Although I will say this, I am going to qualify this. I thought, first of all, at halftime that, honestly speaking, that Washington was going to score 70 points. I said they're well on their way. But I'm really nervous about next week against Oregon. I mean, I don't think Dan Lanning really has a heart. I think he'll run up 80 if whatever it takes. But I won't go there right at this moment. But it met the expectations. It would be high scoring. I was really awestruck how easy, no matter what the yardage was, first and 18, second and 45,000. That they just went through it like there was no defense on the field. It was just absolutely jaw-dropping to me, although not surprised, but still to do that at that level, wow.
Mark, your expectation you had in this one that was met.
That USC's defense that's coordinated by Alex Grinch would look as crappy as it did. But they went beyond. This was by far their worst performance of the year. And I'm not just talking about statistics. I'm talking about they looked completely unprepared to handle anything. It's literally, Washington said, let's just wait for USC's defense to line up, wait for them to shift, call the play. You will get yards. Expectation. USC's defense is beyond broken. There is no defense.
Yeah.
This may be, in all the years, and I've been following it since 1962, honestly, they've had teams that aren't always great teams.
Yeah.
But defensively, they've always been pretty much fighters. I can't recall a defense worse than this in the history of the modern era of USC football, in my opinion.
You're asking these guys to give great effort, and I think they really are.
They do.
They're working twice as hard because they're running 100 yards rather than 50 yards because they're just completely out of position. It's unacceptable. And Lincoln Riley doesn't even want to answer the question anymore because he knows it's unacceptable.
But Mark, didn't Lincoln say he was gonna take over some of the defense and make sure that he was looking after it?
Let's save that for Monday, Greg.
All right, so my expectation in this one was it was a race to 50. A race to 50, and you had to get there. You had to get to 50 to win this game, and Washington did it. So like you, Greg, the high scoring, and that you had to be near perfect offensively in order to win this one. And Washington, I mean, you look at their drive chart and it's like they had one unsuccessful drive in the entire game, and it went negative because of a penalty, right? Which we knew kind of Washington gets penalized, and that could play into USC's hand. And there were some bad ones against them, not bad calls, but ones that really seemed to help USC. But Washington got to 50, won the game. So if there were any surprises, Greg, for you in this one, our fourth thing, the surprise for you in this one.
How easy, I mean, maybe I shouldn't have been surprised, how easy the Washington offense on the ground just went through them. I mean, I'm thinking to myself, look, you're on national television. You are playing for your life to get in the Pac-12 championship game. And it kind of goes back to what Mark said a little bit. The scheming is so absurdly wrong that at halftime, I saw that Matt Leinart tweeted out, they're always in the wrong formation. They haven't improved week to week, and I'm sure he's being diplomatic about it. I can hesitate to think what he's saying to his buddies when he talks to them on the phone or what have you. But it is mind-numbing to see what Grinch is doing. I feel sorry for him, actually. It's almost like you want someone to relieve him of his command, and like I said, it just was mind-boggling.
Mark, you have a surprise from this one?
Yeah, two. that Washington was able to achieve 333 yards on the ground. They hadn't had, what, 160 was their high all year? And here's a really positive surprise. USC sold out and 72,000 showed up. A lot of purple, though, especially in the high rent district. USC fans, you've got a lot to be ashamed about. Sorry, especially you donors who helped pay for Pat's Tower. It had to have been at least 50-50 purple to Cardinal. Eric, do you disagree?
There was a lot of purple. I don't know if I'd go all the way 50-50. There was a lot of purple. There was,
Are you
there-
talking, are you talking in the tower or out in the stands?
I'm talking on Pat's Tower, that side of
Okay.
the field.
Yeah, I looked down there. There were a lot of people that
I
obviously
rented
paid the
it.
money to sit there.
Yep. And we got to hear Purple Rain in the Huskies locker room after the game.
Well, lucky you.
Those were my surprises.
Mark trying to
All
bring
right.
something positive. I like that.
It's the Washington run game that it did what it did. And I guess the surprise is that maybe Washington was just so comfortable that they could do that they knew they wouldn't need to throw it, and that they could just show up and run it, and USC dared them to. I mean, they dared them to. They had their rush in, dropped into the secondary for huge chunks of the game, and the way they lined up, and Dylan Johnson ran for 256 yards in this game. This same Michael Penix Jr. passed for 250. Michael Penix Jr. throws for 400 yards a game. He threw for 256, 2 touchdowns and an interception. You take that. If you're USC, I think going into the game, you absolutely would have been comfortable with him putting up those numbers. And then Dylan Johnson runs for 256. His career high coming into this game was against Oregon. He had 100 yards. He had 100 yards coming into this game against Oregon. There's a chance he got close to like doubling his season average. I haven't looked at exactly what his
0.8
his
per
numbers, not the average, but his total coming into this one. He did whatever he wanted. He got huge running plays in, and it's not a surprise that it happened. If you told me that Washington was going to run the ball 42 times, yeah, I probably would have guessed around 300 yards on the ground. I mean, it just happens. It's almost as if the defense at times actively works against themselves to open up holes for opposing offenses. It is wild to watch, and there's no answer. The answer from the players and the coaches is we have to keep doing what we're doing. I mean,
Isn't that the definition of insanity?
Let's get to the biggest takeaway, because I think if we keep going here, we're going to get into the biggest takeaway. Greg, our thing here. Let's wrap this thing up. Your biggest takeaway from, again, Washington 52, USC 42.
My biggest takeaway is that this program is on the verge of one of the most embarrassing going in the wrong direction that I've seen. It's very easy for me to see USC dropping the next 2 games, and I'm including UCLA. Absolutely. They're going to go to a bowl game. If they do what they did against the Tulane, they could finish the season at 7-6. That to me is a takeaway that has a lot of reality to it. And if I was Lincoln Riley, I'd be really embarrassed right about now. You know what? He's on display for the years that he built up this reputation as one of the great young college coaches in America. Boy, I'll tell you what, if it turns out that's the way this season ends, he's got a lot of work to do, both on his team and a reflection of his own philosophies. And it's going to better begin on defense. I can tell you that.
Mark, your biggest takeaway from this one?
So I asked Lincoln the question after the game, you know, where does he think the team's mentality is right now, morale? And, you know, he gave the right coach speak answer. My takeaway, though, was what Caleb said when he was asked the question. And I don't know if he really, I don't know if it's a lack of respect for the media or he just didn't like the question. But to say that I'm going to go home and snuggle with my dog and watch movies after this loss, tells me that he's already mentally checked out, or he just doesn't want to deal with the media, one of the two. Either or, my takeaway is I don't know how prepared this team will be next week for Oregon. I'm really concerned that this team's like, you know what? We're doing everything we can on offense, but there's just nothing that defense can do to help us. And that, look, it creeps. They might not be pointing fingers and saying it publicly, but I've been in a locker room before. I've coached high school basketball before. We've all played sport before. That type of stuff is in that locker room right now. And I'm really concerned what's going to happen next week, because it's even showing up on special teams. It didn't hurt them. They were lucky that they recovered the ball, but they almost turned a kickoff into a 99-yard onside kick because Zachariah Branch is running towards the sideline before the ball hits the end zone. It never got to the end zone. This team isn't in the right frame of mind. I don't think they're listening to the coaches anymore. They're going through the motions. My opinion, I hope I'm wrong.
So just to put this out for the biggest takeaway, because your comment about I don't think they're going to be ready for Oregon. I don't know if it matters defensively if they're ready or not. It might be better. Sure, it might be better defensively if they do just kind of whatever they want. So looking this up quickly, Dylan Johnson, the 256, that's third most on the ground against USC. Kenyon Barner at 321, and Joshua Kelly, the UCLA game, had 289, and so this one settles right above Curtis Enos from Penn State. I know everyone wants to go over all the highlights for USC defense. So the biggest takeaway for me is that Lincoln Riley has squandered any potential head start that he may have gotten going into the Big Ten and taking over a USC program that was bad and in bad shape. And I do think that he gets a little credit for what he was taking over in sort of everything that was there, the roster and kind of just the feeling around it and all of that. But all the goodwill that you built up in 2022 with the kind of opportunistic defense, winning the Heisman Trophy. I mean, winning the Heisman Trophy, going to a prestigious bowl game in your first year, it's erased. It's erased because of this defensive performance, and certainly what we expect over the next 2 weeks. Washington, Kalen DeBoer took over, same kind of thing, brought in his quarterback, and you look at kind of the trajectories right now, and yes, this was a close game for a long time, but the feeling around the two programs could not be any more different right now. And so you still have 2 regular season games. Lincoln Riley's still talking about if we win those next 2, we're right in the mix for whatever. So you've got 2 regular season games. You probably have the bowl game after that. And then you're already kind of looking forward to this being an absolutely gigantic offseason and the decisions that have to be made. And Lincoln Riley was asked about, do you regret how you handled the defensive side of the ball this year? And he sort of pushed it down the line, which is fine. Those decisions will be made when those decisions need to be made. We're checking off weeks now, and we're getting to a point where some big decisions have to be made. And you are flat-footed, if not getting passed by Oregon and Washington and all of those teams that are going over to the Big Ten. And any sort of head start that you might have been able to get leading into it, it's gone now. It's gone, and there is work to do. He hasn't shied away from the fact that you've got work to do, but this season feels really squandered by what is going on defense, because it's almost like nonsensical to talk about some of the numbers and the performances and trying to break down, well, what's going on here and what's going on here. It's chaos. It's absolute chaos. There's no answers. And the idea that, they're going to get it right against an Oregon offense in Eugene, and even a UCLA offense that can kind of put things together and will run at a ton, they're going to run 60 times, right, against this USC defense. So a ton of work to do on the field the rest of the season, over the offseason, and it feels like this program right now is standing flat-footed, and teams are relishing the opportunity to put up these points against.
They're on their heels. They are not even
Sure.
on flat feet. They are
Yes,
on
yes.
heels. They're
I
about
just-
to get knocked out.
This Oregon game is going to be, it's going to be interesting. You hope that they fight, right? They have fought, they've put it out there, they keep coming, and it's not enough. It's not enough defensively right now in any way, shape, or form. You're talking about them being compared to just some of the worst, I mean, like the worst Colorado defenses in the Pac-12 in terms of numbers and performances. And I know USC fans just want to hear about this constantly, but that's what it is. I mean, that is where it is right now. So we're gonna wrap up this our 5 things look at, again, a 52-42 Washington win against USC, and USC has another couple ranked teams to go in this gauntlet of games to finish the season. So for Mark Culkin, for Greg Katz, this is Eric McKinney. Thank you for watching 5 Things. Thank you for watching We Are SC.